Good evening. Welcome to A1TV, the Mark Show. And tonight's guest is a man that I had a bit to do with back in the 90s and a person who I really class as a true friend. He's a great man. We talk about brands. Well, this man is a brand in himself and he created my brand and helped me on my start of my career in media. We can go on with one of those things where we don't see each other for 6 months, but it's just like old times. And Steven Milne, welcome to the Mark Show on A1TV.
You're giving me a big head. I'm going to explode.
Milney, 1998 was the year. I think it was 1998. Tell me about, first of all, your life in media, Milney, and what it meant to you, your life as a journalist, Milney.
Yeah, well, true. You walked into my life in 1998 and it was, my life's never been the same. Beautiful. But I always wanted to be a sports reporter, from a little kid back at Elstonwick Primary School when I was collecting my Scanlon's footy cards and getting excited when I had an Alan Stoneham from the Bulldogs in my footy card packet and Kelvin Templeton and Gary Dempsey. And I always, wanted to go and watch the Bulldogs play and get paid for it. So I was pretty fortunate out of high school. I did primary school teaching at tertiary college at Phillip Institute up near the old Pentridge for a year. Then I was lucky enough to get a cadetship, be offered a cadetship at the Western Times, which was an independent newspaper out in the Western Suburbs based in Footscray. And one of my gigs was to watch the Footscray Football Club play their games in the AFL and get paid for it. So it was a dream come true.
Your Western Bulldogs Footscray connection, Steve, was that about because you were based there? Where did the love of the Bulldogs come from early days?
Well, I grew up in a North Melbourne family.
Yes.
Mum and Dad barracked Kangaroos, and we'd go and see the Kangas play with Shimmer and Johnny Casson and Arnold Bridus and all the champs, David Dench, Keith Grigg, Malcolm Blight. But I just think, and my brother Peter, who's exactly 1 year younger than me, he was always a bit of a mummy's boy, so he went for the Kangaroos. I just reckon I like the colours red, white and blue, and I like dogs. Simple as that. And Gary Dempsey won the Brownlow in 1975 when I was 7. So that really converted me. And I must admit, up until the Bulldogs premiership, I love my night 2016 Bulldogs premiership. I was always a bit envious of my brother Peter because he'd seen the Kangaroos win 4, 75, 77, and the 2 under Dennis Pagan. And the Bulldogs were always, down near the bottom and struggling to win games, but I'd go every week. Mum and Dad would go off to see the Roos play with Peter, and I'd go off and see the Bulldogs play on my own and come home with a 10-goal defeat, but Kelvin Templeton kicked 5 goals, so I was still pretty happy.
So you went to University High, is that correct? And the journalism was always in your blood, Steve. You talked about school teaching, but journalism is what you wanted. Why journalism? Why did you think that was going to be your career? Because, Stephen, I can say to the viewers of this that you're a great writer, you're a great personality, you're a great person. And so was journalism something that was always on the radar for you?
Well, I can remember in year 8, and I can remember the teacher's name, Miss Novakis. And I did an essay, and I was an average student, to be honest, but I did an essay and I think it was a match report, St Kilda versus the Bulldogs. And for some reason, St Kilda won because I did like Trevor Barker. He was one of my faves and he was the high flyer for St Kilda. And I can remember handing my assignment in and I received it back a week or so later and Miss Novakis had written 18 out of 20 and her only comment was, "Are you sure this is your own work?" She thought I cheated or copied or plagiarised or whatever. And I thought that was year 8. So I can remember thinking, geez, if Mr. Varkas is suggesting that this is not my own work, and it was my own work, I might be okay at this. So that was always going to be plan A, and primary school teaching was going to be plan B.
Now, two of your adversaries, mentors, Ron Coleman and Howard Lee. Now, those two gentlemen in particular were very much influential in your early days of your journalistic career. Tell us a bit about Ron Coleman and BH.
Yes, I'll start with Stewie Brown. And you wouldn't have known Stewie Brown, but when I got to the Western Times, I was, 18 or 19. And Stewie Brown was an editor of the old Herald back in the halcyon days of the 50s. And he was retired gentleman living down in Williamstown in his 70s. And he really took me under his wing. And I don't really like to use the word mentor, but he really took a shine to me. You know, said to me at 18 and 19 that I was writing like a 28-year-old, 29-year-old, that my writing was mature for someone so young. So, you know, that was a tremendous confidence boost for me and just what I needed. So me and Stewie were, you know, we were best mates. Ron Coleman was the editor of the newspaper. And I think Ron gave me my opportunity on the advice of Stewie Brown, to be honest. And Ron was, he was a massive support for me. And then Howard Lee was one of my favourite journos. He wrote for the Sunday Observer back when I started at the Western Times. And he was headline Howie, you know, he'd always get the headlines and he was flamboyant. And I met him a couple of times at the footy and I just fell in love with the bloke. So Paul Amy wrote a really nice story on Howard a few years ago and quoted me in the story. And he sort of said, whenever Milney and Howard Lee get together, they're like little kids down the back of the classroom chatting about things and having fun. So Howard, to this day, is one of my best mates. He's a great man.
How's he going, Howard? Have you spoken to him recently?
Yeah, Howard's slowing down, obviously. So he's in his 80s. He's battling away. But, you know, he was just Mr. Hollywood, really. Hollywood Howard Lee. And he was the ring announcer. And there was one night at the boxing, they were all calling out Kermit. Get out of there, Kermit. And I was thinking there must be a boxer with the nickname Kermit. And then Howard Lee got into the ring and he was wearing a lime green suit. They all calling him Kermit the Frog. I was hilarious. He's a very funny man.
Now, Stephen, on that, because I can go down many tangents with this, right? And you've got some great stories because you and I met in 98, right? Western Region Football League had just gone from Footscray District Footy League to the Western Region, right? And obviously tough men. And Howard used to write all the controversial stories, right? How did you find writing the hard stories when H would come out and go out hard and they used to criticise him for the stories, you know, take the angle of the bad stuff? How did you go about writing good stuff and bad stuff in the paper, Steve?
Oh, it was hilarious. Like Howard and I would go to a game and let's just say Butts and Mamidi. You remember Butts and Mamidi for Yarraville? Because the turnstiles started. What did the turnstiles do?
Click, 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 Stephen. The money coming through the turnstiles.
They were ticking, ticking, ticking. And there'd be one punch in the game. So I would go with, you know, Yarraville goal kicking machine, Brian Butts and Mamidi's kicked 10, and they've had a big win over Parkside. And Howard Lee would go, I'm just thinking of a Parkside player, Michael O'Keefe was reported for a striking charge against Butts and Mamidi. To be honest, it made my stories look good, you know what I mean? So he did like the controversial stuff. But I'd mention that, say, Michael O'Keefe was reported, but it might be in my 33rd paragraph, certainly not in my first opening couple of paragraphs.
Now, Stephen, you're always famous for your lines, your quotes. Now, I used to laugh at, because I used to read your work all the time, Stephen. What were some of the favourite words you used to use in your quotes in the paper? Because you were famous for 3 or 4 that you used to use all the time, Milney.
It's a little bit like the way I live my life. I always try to make people that I come into contact with, I want them to feel a little bit better about themselves. You know, I want to put a smile on their face. So even if it's, down working at Coles at Berkeley Square and I'm on trolley duty and, I'll walk past an elderly lady, I'll say, "G'day, how are you?" And it puts a little smile on their face. So back when I was reporting at the Western Times and then the Footscray Mail and the Williamstown Advocate and the Sunshine Advocate, did I say Williamstown Advertiser? Williamstown Advertiser, Sunshine Advocate, Werribee Banner. I'd write stories about people and I'd try to pump them up a bit too. So, it's the old story. I do a story on, I did a story on Jamie Redfern's brother. He played at Braybrook. What was his name? He was a character. Yeah, anyway, he told me he played 300 games. He was quite a good player at suburban level. Anyway, he told me that he loved it and his wife loved it and his kids loved it and his mum loved it and his dad loved it and his cousins loved it. So there were 50 family members that loved this story that I wrote about him. So I would say something like, I used to like writing, using the word dazzling. That was one of my favourites. So, flamboyant. I just use adjectives. I love my adjectives.
You did.
Magnificent. My late grandmother, she always used the word marvellous. Everything was marvellous. So I quoted my I quoted my nanny, Maria Milne. So everything was marvellous. Splendid was another one, outstanding, all those cliches, but it makes people feel good about themselves.
Marvellous, Mark Stone. Now, we want to talk about your connection, yourself and myself connection. We started a footy show at the Footscray RSL on I think it was a Monday night. We used to go and film. I think it might have been. And you always got to have a sidekick. And Milney, when you meet people that you connect with, that it makes it easy. You made the show we did on Channel 31 on a Monday night, filming of that show. You made it easy for me because I could actually bounce off you, and we could make magic. And our TV, and this is without being big-headed, our TV connection was unbelievable, Milne. It was really. I look back on tapes now. I've got some of the guests we had on that show: Tony Leonard, Luke Darcy, Andrew Dimitri. I think we had on it. We had some great guests on that show. And Penner always says, Mark Penner, the boss of the Werribee Football Club and the former Western Lemon. Yeah, Lemon. And he used to say that Luke Darcy got his show on our Footy Fever show. But Milne, that show, that connection you and I had was a lot of fun, that show. And we had some guests that used to come up to the show, Milne. Jeff. Remember Jeff?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, Jeff and his son.
Yeah, correct.
It was about being entertaining. And there was another bloke who had another footy show on Channel 31, and he was the best. He had all the stats. And he'd come on and he'd say, Bayswater, 12 goals, 1486. Have defeated Baldwin, 10 goals, 969. Now, I don't mean to be rude, but that's pretty boring. And you and I, there was a bit of entertainment about us. We dropped names. We had a bit of fun. We made a few blues, but we laughed those blues off, and it was infectious. And by jingo, Stoney, we created a cult following. They loved us. We'd walk into suburban footy grounds around the Western Suburbs, Deer Park and Spotswood and Parkside and St Albans. Mate, we were like the Beatles.
It was a bit like the Beatles, Milne. But you remember that we had two young guys on the show, Peter Holden and Michael Sinclair. Now, Michael Sinclair and Peter both going to do great things in their life, but the incident with the pie, Milne, was very humorous. And I got a phone call about 10 minutes after that show saying, never let that happen again, Stephen.
Yeah, well, those two young blokes, and they have gone on to bigger and better things too, and congratulations to them. But at the time, they were about 18 or 19, and there was just there's a couple of little egos starting to grow, and I think Holden wanted to get one over on Sinclair, and Sinclair wanted to get three over on Holden, and if Holden made a blue, Sinclair would be sort of celebrating, and if Sinclair made a blue, Holden would be the one saying, "You little beauty." And at one stage, I think it was Holden, picked up a pie and threw it at Sinclair. You and I thought it was magnificent. That's ratings. That's a ratings winner. Everyone will be talking about that. So that was their personality, and we sort of calmed things down, didn't we? We calmed things down, but geez, we're still talking about it all these years later.
That's right, Stephen. And I suppose that the big thing for me was big thing for you, Stephen, because I went away in 2000, had a year off, went down to Tasmania and come back in 2002, Stephen, and the circus come to town, Milne, because we had the Hammerheads. And one Steven Milne was feature as the journalist on that show. That would have been a bit exciting for yourself, Stephen.
Yeah, it was. It majorly was. I was the scribe. That's Timmy Watson, the great Timmy Watson, the Essendon champion, fell in love with me at a sort of an interview type situation out the Whitten Oval. He sort of made a beeline up to me. He said, "Who are you?" And I said, "Oh, look, Stephen Milne, what are you doing here?" And I told him, and he fell in love with me. So he says, "You're coming with me." So all of a sudden, I was the sports journalist, the scribe that used to follow the Hammerheads around. And gee whiz, I had blood on my hands in one game because I spoke to Mark Crean, who was playing for Wyndham Vale or Glen Ordinary or one of those sides out Werribee way. And they were playing the Hammerheads the following week. And I think it was Crean. He came up and he said, "Milne, how do we stop the Hammerheads? They're winning games. They're on top of the ladder. The ratings on Channel 7 are flying through the roof." And I said, "Well, the Rover Macca. I said, he's the best player in the competition by a million miles. He'll win the competition best and fairest, which he did. And I said, the centre forward, I said, he's a pretty good player too. Anyway, McCallion was cleaned up in the first 5 minutes and got carried off. And the centre forward was cleaned up about 10 minutes in. So I didn't tell opposition any secrets after that. But I can remember my daughter Courtney. I took her into the city. I got invited. I don't know how I got invited, but I got invited like to a Bonds launch. So I took little Corcor in. She was about 6 at the time, or 7. And we met Kathy Freeman. We met Patrick Rafter. And Patrick Rafter actually made a beeline to Courtney for an autograph because she was like the youngest person there. Anyway, on the way home, we were walking down Swanston Street to catch the tram back to Brunswick. And Podge, remember Podge,
Yep.
the Irishman that the Hammerheads recruited?
Yep.
He said, oh, Milney. Anyway, I said, oh, Podge, this is my daughter Courtney. And Courtney quite liked Podge, thought he was quite handsome. And as we're on the tram going up, I said, that was a pretty good night. You know, did you enjoy meeting Patrick Rafter and Catherine Freeman? And she said, who were they? I said, well, what was your highlight of the night, sweetheart? And she said, meeting Podge.
It was a bit like that too. Now, Milne, the other thing is that you and I have crossed paths at the MCG, and I used to really enjoy our commitment and our connection at the MCG in the media room, where you were frequently in the media room, and an old-time favourite of ours, Kenny Arrowsmith, who was, you know, obviously a great person at the G, and he had a lot of connections at the MCG, and it was a lot of fun times in the media boxes in that the harrowed turf of the MCG and the stand, the Olympic stand.
Yeah, look, great magic moments. So I was extremely fortunate to have a 25-year career in the media. You know, initially at the Western Times newspaper, and then over to the Footscray Mail, and like I said earlier, the Williamstown Advertiser and the Sunshine Advocate, and there was a couple of other papers there too. But I just had the golden ticket. I had the golden ticket to the MCG, the old press box, and then into the new media centre in the new and improved MCG. And Kenny Arrowsmith was a great mate of mine from the old Brunswick Football Club days and the old VFA days. And Ken was the Brunswick timekeeper for over 600 games. And he was the press box attendant. And I used to sit next to Ken, and we just used to have great times. Jack Dyer, I remember sitting next to Jack Dyer in the old media box. Just great days. I'll tell you a funny story. And this happened probably 10 years ago now, but in the new media centre at the MCG, which is on the wing, and I'm in the toilet doing a wee-wee. Anyway, this bloke comes and stands next to me, and he's doing the business too. And then a bloke comes onto the other side of me, and he's doing the business too. And then all of a sudden, I hear a little squeaky voice, "G'day, Blighty." And I'm thinking, all right, well, that's Lee Matthews, and Blighty is Malcolm Blight. So Malcolm Blight, myself, and Lee Matthews, all trying to aim straight. And I'm thinking to myself, I'm having a dream here. This is unbelievable. Malcolm Blight's there, Lee Matthews is there. So I finished first, because I'd started first. So I went, washed my hands, dried my hands, and stood by the door and opened the door. And Blighty, he walked out the door. I said, it's funny who you meet at the toilet at the MCG. And he had a bit of a laugh. And then Lee Matthews walked out, and I said, after you, Lethal. He said, thank you. It was hilarious. Just the people that you rub shoulders with, Stoney.
Now, Milne,
very privileged.
You are partial to an autograph too, Stephen. How many autographs would you have you had, or would you have had of sports stars that have graced everywhere, Milne?
I love autographs. I love them. In fact, I'll tell you, one of the best autographs I ever got was Asafa Powell. Remember Asafa Powell, the speedster?
Yeah. And
he won a Commonwealth Games gold medal this night at the MCG. And he came off after winning the gold medal, and he came off the MCG, and there was a media packet all around the world, media, representatives from the media all around the world. And they were all together, because they're a little bit like sheep. So they were all together, and I was a little bit further down. Anyway, he's come off, and they've all fired questions and got the microphones over the little fence there, and he just ignored them. And then he's come up past me, and I've said, can I have your autograph, Asafa? And he's come over to sign his autograph. And as he signed his autograph, I asked the question. I said, when do you think you'd won the race? When do you think you'd won gold? And he looked at me and he said, at the start of the race. I was the only journalist in the entire world to get a quote from Asafa Powell after he'd won gold medal in the 100 metres sprint at the MCG, the Commonwealth Games.
Did you write that? Did you write that?
So I asked him, huh?
Did you write the article about that? Did you use that quote?
Front page. Milney's on the front page yet again.
Now, you had some great connections at, you and I went to Jack Collins's house. I think was it Jack Collins in Altona? Was that the Charlie Sutton's house? And so you had a great connection with that 54 flag side, didn't you? Because Jack was a big part of your life, Stephen, and Charlie was a great man.
Yeah, 1954, the Bulldogs' first premiership, 15-12, 102 to Melbourne 7-9-51 with Jack Collins kicking 7. So Jack and I met through the newspaper game. He used to ring me up and give me stories, and I used to give him a bit of publicity. In fact, I gave him a lot of publicity, and became great mates with him. And then he introduced me to Teddy Whitten Senior. You know, Mr. Football became a good mate of mine. Got a funny Teddy Whitten story for you too. And Charlie Sutton, the captain coach of 1954, and he became a very good friend of mine as well. So I think the old fellas quite like me because I used to write their names in the paper. So, you know, obviously they weren't yesterday's heroes, but they were footy champions from 50 years ago, and the young bloke writing footy in the local papers were doing stories about them. So I think they quite like that. A Teddy Whitten story.
Yeah.
A Teddy Whitten story, I'll tell you. I rang Teddy up one night, and the Bulldogs had been thrashed by Geelong down at Geelong. And Teddy Whitten used to call the game for K-Rock for 3GL. So I rang Teddy up. I had his home phone number. This is back before mobiles.
Yeah.
I rang him up at his place in Altona East, the Broadway, Altona East. And I said, Ted, might have even called him Mr. Whitten. It's Steven Milne here from the Western Times. The Bulldogs didn't play particularly well on Saturday. Could I get a couple of quotes? And he said they lack leadership. Malthouse has got to go as coach. Their forward line is non-existent. The back line has got no pace and plays from behind. And I'm writing all this down saying, geez, this is gold. This is front page. Milney's done it again. The great Teddy Whitten, Mr. Football, has given me all these great quotes. So anyway, go into work on the Monday and I'm busily, you know, on the typewriter. This is back before computers even. On the typewriter, writing all these quotes out, the phone goes. So I picked the phone up and I said, Steven Milne speaking. And there's a booming voice down the phone, down the receiver. He goes, Whitten here. And I said, Mr. Whitten. He says, I do believe we had a conversation last night. Can you read out the quotes you're going to use in the Western Times this week, young whippersnapper? So my heart sunk because I'm thinking, well, he's going to take it all back.
Yeah.
He's going to say, no, I didn't say that, or I didn't mean that. Anyway, I read the quotes out to him. He goes, geez, I make more sense when I'm drunk. And I said, what does that mean, Mr. Whitten? He says, mate, use them wherever you want to use them. Front page, back page, page 3, page 5, use them all. So I got my stories.
Milney, now...
Really big in Pakistan. I believe, because I've done my research, we're big in Pakistan and parts of Asia. Is that right?
And Australia, correct. That's right. So this is going to go... This will go right around Asia, Pakistan, and Australia, this interview. So I've got a couple more for you before we bring a special guest on, Milne. Your sporting prowess, because when I met you, Royal Park, Brunswick, and East Coburg, right? You were actually a cricketer. Now, Milne, how good a cricketer were you? And as an opening batsman, Milne?
Well, look, thanks for asking me. Look, if I'd been completely committed, because I was invited down to Carlton Cricket Club by John Scholes, the legendary John Scholes, who was a mate of mine. He invited me down to Carlton, and I reckon if I'd pursued it to the absolute best of my ability, I reckon I potentially could have played second 11 at Carlton, but I didn't, obviously, because, I quite enjoyed, I quite enjoyed playing cricket at a lower level with my mates. Anyway, at Royal Park, Brunswick, on my 21st birthday, can you believe this? On my 21st birthday, which is on January the 21st, and it was a Saturday this particular year, so I was 21 on the 21st of January. I played cricket. I was 7 not out overnight from the previous week. Guess how much I made?
How much?
121 not out.
Is that your best score, Milney?
Yeah, that's my best score. So 121 not out on my 21st birthday, which was January 21st. Now, in senior cricket, I was a leg spin bowler, and I won a game. I was a bit like Shane Warne, obviously at East Coburg seconds, but I bowled 19 overs on the trot, 19 overs and 3 deliveries, 6 for 69, and I won the game for us. But that was my best bowling. But at school cricket, if you can believe this, a mate of mine, Johnny Alamanis, and I opened the bowling for University High School. And Johnny Alamanis, we bowled this side out for 29. And Johnny Alamanis bowled 3 overs, no maidens, 3 for 29. And I bowled 2 overs and 2 balls, 2 overs and 2 balls, 2 maidens, 7 for none.
What age group?
Right, quite remarkable. I must admit 2 of my wickets were girls, but still, you've got to still get them out. 7 for none. But I can remember Alamanis opening the bowling, and Simon Tongue was a beautiful batsman for the opposition, and he whacked Alamanis for about 17 runs off his first over, right? So he sort of hit a 4 and a 6 and another 4 and a 2 and maybe a 1. And then I came on just with my little, sort of straight mediums, and Tongue's gone whack. And I've said, all right, well, my first ball's gone for 6. There's a chance he's going to hit me for 6 sixes in this over because it was a pretty small ground. Anyway, Jimmy Wong, this little bloke, Jimmy Wong.
Not the famous Footscray man.
No, not the restaurant man. Yeah. Just the little bloke, Jimmy Wong, who ended up being a chef, though. I swear he didn't even look at the ball, and it landed in his hands, and he caught it. So Tongue was out. I'd got 1 ball for 1 wicket, and then we just ran through him. We got him all out in for 12 because he'd made 17 off the first over. So, yeah, good day.
You weren't too bad. So you've got 3 beautiful children, Courtney, yes, Zachary and Marcus. And Courtney and Marcus used to watch me on TV and watch you and I on TV and point to us at the TV. But they've grown up now, Stephen.
Back in the day. Back in the day, they loved it. Little Corkor.
Yeah. And you've found love late in life, Stephen, and your beautiful wife, Maria.
Yes.
That's a great story.
I'm very lucky. Well, look, I had 23 pretty glorious years with Louise, with Courtney, Marcus and Zachary's mother.
Yeah.
But I've been very, very fortunate. I was a single dad for 16 months.
Yeah.
And I can remember saying to myself, I'm not going to settle for anything less than 10 out of 10. You call them specials, don't you? Specials.
Yeah.
So I was not going to settle for anything less than a special. And 16 months into my single dad days, I just met this beautiful woman at the Berkeley Square Shopping Centre car park in Brunswick. And we met over a trolley. She had a Kmart trolley, and Courtney at the time worked at Kmart. So I was out under the blue skies on trolley duty for Coles. And I said, Maria could have been the most happily married woman in the world. I said, my daughter Courtney works at Kmart. Would you like me to take your trolley? And she looked around. I thought she was just going to roll it down the hill to me. And she said, that would be lovely. So I went up and collected the trolley off her. We got talking. I asked her, if she was on Facebook and whether she'd want to send me a friend request. And we spoke on Facebook for a night or two, spoke on the mobile phone. I said, can I grab your phone number, get to know you a bit better? Spoke on the phone for a night or two, Stoney. And then I said, look, I'd really like to take you out. Haven't got a lot of money, but, probably be able to cover dinner. And she said, and I told her about my friend Tiger Trev. And Tiger Trev and I used to go to Dicey's Pizza in Sydney Road, Brunswick, every Saturday night for pizza, obviously. And then we'd come home and Tiger would read his Bible, he'd sleep at my house, and then at about 9:30, he'd say, Milney, can you come and tuck me in? And I would literally tuck him in. So I told Maria this story. So she agreed to go on a date, on our first date, provided that we go to Dicey's Pizza and that Tiger comes along with us. So our first date was Maria Elena, myself and Tiger Trev. And it was a magical first date.
Shows a bit about the community and connection and special, if I want to call it that, grounded type person that Milney, makes you happy, which is great. Now, we can bring Tiger Trev into the equation right now.
Come and sit next to me, Ty. Oh. The great man. Come here. Mate, move over so you're on the TV.
Hello, how are you?
So Tiger is a Brunswick icon, and Milney, Trev, you have Milney in your corner, which is a great thing, and you're a crazy Richmond supporter, is that correct?
Yes, I am.
Who's the favourite player?
Dustin Martin.
Of course. Milney, you spend a lot of time with Tiger Trev, and it's good you're doing some community and great work with Tiger.
Yeah, we do. I ran into Ty maybe 5 years ago, and Ty smokes too much, and he still smokes too much.
Yeah.
Anyway, he used to shuffle over and he'd have his Richmond beanies on, This is in the middle of summer too. He'd shuffle over and he'd have his Richmond top on and he'd be smoking. There'd be all smoke around him. And we became best mates. And whenever I'm on trolley duty at Coles, Ty comes out and helps me. And he says hello to all the pretty girls. Don't worry about that. And you're a legend down at Barclay, aren't you?
Yeah, I am, Mills, yeah.
So you still get the Dicey's Pizza, Milney?
No, lockdown. So Ty's turning 39 on January the 17th of next year.
Yeah.
And where are we going?
Dicey's.
We go to Dicey's Pizza. Yeah. So we're going to just turn the clock back, Stoney.
Yeah.
Hey, Trev, what's your favourite pizza there, mate? What's your flavour of the month or the week? What do you like?
Any type of pizza.
Any type of pizza.
Anytime. He likes
meat lovers.
Yeah, meat lovers. Yeah.
Aussie.
Yeah, meat lovers is our favourite.
Now, Milney, what I got you there, I got a couple more for you. The Marngrook Footy Show. I know you're still doing. Do you miss the media? I know you still do some stuff with Grant Hansen on the Marngrook. Do you miss it?
Well, Marngrook radio show on Cool and Deadly Indigenous Radio, 15:03 a.m. I think it's around the world because you can get it on iHeart.
Yeah. But
that's just reignited my passion for the media, and it's a beautiful show. We interview superstars: Peter Dacos, Tony Morwood, Kenny Sheldon. The list goes on. Alan Stoneham from the Bulldogs a couple of weeks ago. Graham Porky Brook, the boxer. Barry Michael, the boxer. Phil Cleary, Mr. VFA. We've just had some amazing guests. Gary Buckenara was a good one just the Saturday. Gone, the 4-time premiership player for the Hawks. So I'm loving it. And I love working with Grant. Grant actually talks a little bit like you, Stoney, where he likes me as his right-hand man. We work well together. Yeah. And what does KB, what's his statue like?
KB.
Yeah, KB's another one.
You always need a good right-hand, left-hand man, Stephen. And you've always been that, and you've always, like I said, I can run to you tomorrow. It has been 6 months, 12 months, 2 years. Doesn't matter. The Abbott and Costello connection will always stand like that. And Laurel and Hardy, whatever you want to call it. Over the times you used to cover a lot of sports in Western Times, I remember when you used to do some of the obscure sports, Stephen, like croquet. What's the other sport? What was that? Trugo. And you used to. How can you make Trugo exciting, Stephen?
Oh, look, it's an exciting game. I actually played 6 official games for Footscray with all the old blokes. It's a great game. It's a hard one to explain. It's probably a cross between croquet and golf, where the blokes sort of put their butt in the air and they've got a mallet and they hit a little ring between their legs, and it's got to go 24 metres that way between 2 little goalposts. And when it goes through the goalpost, all the old blokes call out, it's a trugo. So that's where the name trugo came from. But the kickboxing, I used to take you to the kickboxing and we'd go out to the local soccer. Mate, they all loved me though, didn't they, Stoney?
Altona Magic was one of the sides we used to follow. But the kickboxing, I thought, for someone who'd never done kickboxing before, I thought some of those, you remember any names from that kickboxing? The bloke that used to knock people out within the split second. It was amazing.
understand the man Loginides, but you got into some colourful characters. Toby Mitchell, who, he gets his name in the papers every second week, with his association with bikie groups. I watched him in a couple of kickboxing fights, and he absolutely smashed the opposition. And I'd go up to him and get a little interview with him ringside. And, he's obviously gone on to bigger and better things. Mick Gatto was another colourful character that I ran into in boxing ranks, but also in soccer ranks out at the Melbourne Knights. Stan the Man.
Who's he?
He's a kickboxer. We're on TV. We're big in Pakistan.
I know a friend that knows him.
Do you?
Yeah.
Oh, Tig's killing it, isn't he?
Milney, I've got one last question for you and Tig. Well, you, Milney, first of all. In all your time in the media, what was the best story you covered, Milney? What was it? Have you got one story that stands out?
There's one that's an absolute ripper. No, there's two. There's two that are absolute rippers that were both followed up on the front page of the Herald Sun.
Yeah, go on.
So I won't name the people involved, but a legendary figure at the Footscray Football Club said to me that when Gary Ablett Sr. was kicked out of the Hawthorn Football Club. Now, Gary Ablett Sr. played at Hawthorn just a handful of games, and then he got turfed out. Hawthorn offered Gary Ablett Sr. to the Bulldogs. They said, there's this kid who's going to be a champion, but he just doesn't fit into the culture at Hawthorn.
Yeah.
He's gone. So Gary Ablett went to Myrtleford, killed him up there. Geelong gave him a second chance, superstar. His son was a superstar. Geelong got him father's son, right? Yeah. Gary Ablett Jr. So the Bulldogs were offered Ablett. They said, get him a job out in the Western Suburbs in the industry, get him an industrial job so he can focus on the industrial job, go to training, he'll be a superstar. The Bulldogs said, no, he's going to be too hot to handle. Imagine Gary Ablett going to the Bulldogs, Gary Ablett Jr. playing at the Bulldogs. They would have won 5 premierships.
I would have too. I agree.
100%. So that's a great story. Great story. But, and then the Cats, obviously, the reward. And then the other one, it was in the old Footscray District Football League, Johnny Sharp, a very good friend of mine, Johnny Sharp. I think he was at the tribunal this particular night for abusing umpires. Surprise, surprise. He rang me up the next day on the Tuesday. The Monday night was the tribunal. On the Tuesday, he said, Milney, some kid got 10 years at the tribunal last night. So I rang up Lindsay Patching, maybe, and said, who got 10 years? And the first thing he said to me was, how did you find out? And I said, well, I find everything out. Right? Anyway, what happened was that the umpire, the boundary umpire was provided, Ty's going to answer the door. So stay there, Ty. The boundary umpire was provided by St Albans under-16s.
Yeah.
And he took offence at the umpire playing a free kick against his brother, who was playing for the under-16s.
Yeah.
So the officiating boundary umpire punched the field umpire.
I remember that story.
Remember that story?
I
so
do.
We got 10 years. The headline across the front page was Umpy Thumps Umpy. And Barnard, what was Barnard's name at St Albans?
Desi
Barnard. I rang him because he was the president and he wasn't happy.
He wasn't happy. Milney.
He wasn't happy with my phone call.
Milney.
Tiger wants to come back.
Okay, I'm going to wrap up now, Milney. Just want to say you're in the spirit.
We're big in Pakistan.
Yep.
You're in the spirit, Milney, because you got the Christmas hat on. Only you could come on. Only you could come onto the show with a Christmas hat, right? Just being you. You're a very funny man, Stephen. Tiger, have a great Christmas.
You've got to be a bit theatrical and have a bit of Hollywood about you, Stoney.
You do. I understand that totally. Tiger, have a great Christmas.
Merry Christmas, Stoney.
Keep punching. And I'll see you, Milney, at Barclays Square before Christmas. Gentlemen, have a great night. The Mark Show, A1TV, big in Pakistan, Stephen. Big in Pakistan.
Massive. Imran Khan's my favourite player.
Good man. See you, boys.
See you, Stoney.
See you, Stoney.
Take care.